Hey guys, this is Austin. It has been nearly 4 years since the original Nintendo 2DS came out, but today there's an upgrade. Big shout out to Nintendo for hooking us up with the 2DS XL a little bit early. So the 2DS has always been a little bit of a weird product. When the 3DS came out, the big feature was the new 3D screen. And of course, that's exactly what the 2DS takes away. So if we open up the box, the first thing we see is the power adapter. So this doesn't seem like something that should be all that impressive, but the new 3DS XL doesn't even actually come with one. You know, I actually kind of like the look of this. So with the blue accents and the kind of textured black finish, it looks really nice. One thing I will say though, is that it feels very lightweight. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of sort of heft to it, but to be fair, it's all plastic and it feels pretty well put together. I mean, so the first thing I noticed is that there's some weird quirks with the design. So the hinge itself actually kind of sticks out a little bit, and because of that, the front-facing camera is actually exposed even when the 2DS is closed. So when you open it up, it makes sense, you can see it pretty well there, but when you close it, it's actually kind of exposed. Something else that's kind of weird is that there's no obvious way to put the games in besides what I assume is behind this flap. Yeah. So inside here, we can put in a 3DS game, a DS game. We also have what looks like a micro SD card, which is going to be 4 gigabytes. So right here beside the headphone jack, there's, the stylus. What? That is the smallest stylus I've ever seen. What? Hold on. So this is what the normal 2DS stylus looks like. You know, it's meant for human hands. Whereas this is the 2DS XL. It is a lot smaller. Like, how is that even supposed to make sense? Comparing the original 2DS with the XL, the first thing you'll notice is that the XL is a lot bigger, and a big part of that is that it now has a clamshell design. So when you look at the original 2DS, something I think a lot of people made fun of was a sort of weird flat design. Now to be fair, in the hand it actually doesn't feel too bad depending on, how big your hands are. For me, it feels about right. But when it comes to actually trying to put this in your pocket, good luck. Whereas something like this, even though it is fairly large, it folds up nice and neat. I will say I do like the look of the 2DS XL. So as far as I know right now in North America, there's only this black and blue color, but I think it looks pretty nice. Something that I really keep coming back to though, is that this is really light. It feels not cheap, but lighter than you would expect. The real comparison here though is with the 3DS XL. And the first thing I noticed with these two is that they actually have slightly different camera layouts. So with the 3DS XL, if I open this guy up, you'll see that there are 2 3D cameras, or I guess 1 3D camera on the back. So essentially you can use this for some mini games, but they actually do take stereoscopic 3D images. Now the 2DS XL also has that, but instead of being on the screen, they're actually on the back.
What?
Yeah, that's what I said. Weird, right? Put them side by side, and the biggest difference that you'll notice between the 2DS XL and the 3DS XL is the lack of 3D screen. So with this guy, you can turn on the 3D switch, you can adjust it to the sort of strength that you like. And there were some cool things that they did do with the 3DS XL, including some eye tracking to sort of customize the screen. As before with the 3DS, if you got a little bit off axis, it could look really weird. However, for me, I just don't really enjoy the 3D. It's kind of nice, a couple games do it well, but for the most part, that switches off all the time, which essentially means it's the same as the 2DS. So this is the new Nintendo 2DS XL, and that new name means that it has the upgraded specs from the 3DS. So while the original hardware came out in 2011, they have since upgraded it and it runs a lot smoother. When you look at the XL side by side with the original 2DS, there are a lot of very nice upgrades. So some of them are super obvious. The screens are much larger on the newer unit, but there are also some more subtle upgrades. Like the original 2DS only had a fairly small and weak speaker, whereas the 2DS XL has dual front firing speakers, or side-ish firing speakers. I accidentally opened the camera, so I guess that means camera time. First thing I noticed is having the cameras on the back means I have to really sort of twist it. So if I try to take a shot of Savage Kenny here, that's some potato quality. Again, the angles are super weird. You actually kind of have to. So you might not want to take your next selfie masterpiece on it, but for a lot of the stuff like games that need it for AR stuff, it works. Of course, as a game console, we have to play some games. So to start with, we have Pokemon Sun. The Pokemon games, I will be totally honest with you, are a huge reason why I played the Game Boy, the DS, and the 3DS. That's really what keeps me coming back to Nintendo handhelds. And Sun, I think, is, well, another one that I've spent a lot of money on.
You spent a lot of money on?
Yeah, I bought a lot of Pokemon games. It looks good. The screens on the 2DS are not great, to be totally honest with you, but it's about the same as every other 3DS, so there's really not a whole lot to complain about. Speaker also sounds decent. Not great, but decent. Next, we have Super Smash. This is a game that really impresses me that's even playable on the 3DS. Considering that this hardware originally came out in 2011, the fact that not only does it look nice and it's playable, but we're getting a full 60 frames per second is awesome. Smash is also one of the few games that do support amiibos. So with the 2DS, what we're doing is we're actually putting it in the middle of the screen, but once we do that, it pretty much immediately loads up the amiibo. You can train it, you can do different things. To be honest, I don't find that there's a ton of games that really make amiibos all that useful, but it's definitely nice to have. So one thing I'm noticing is the stylus actually isn't quite as annoying as I thought it would be. Yes, it is very, very short, but depending on how you hold it, it actually doesn't feel that bad. Now you do have the option of buying digital games for the 2DS XL as opposed to buying the physical ones, so most of the titles are available in the eShop. But generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of the way that Nintendo handles a lot of the account stuff, and to be honest, I prefer having the actual physical games. What is cool though is you do have the full virtual console on here. There aren't a ton of games, but you do have a fair few options such as the original Pokemon games, you have some NES titles, some Super Nintendo games, Game Boy Color, and there are still more coming. For example, Pokemon Gold and Silver will be available on the 3DS a little bit later in the year. So Nintendo is still making both the 2DS as well as the new 3DS XL right now. So which one should you pick up? Well, if you want to be cheap and you want just a basic Pokemon machine, it is hard to argue with the 2DS at about $80. It is definitely not perfect. It would be nice if it had better speakers and the design that was a little bit more portable, but I think a lot of people will be completely fine with this. The 3DS XL is definitely the superior console as far as tech goes. So not only does it have all the updated specs, but you have the additional buttons and controls, amiibo support, and it does have that nicer looking 3D screen. But for me, I don't ever use the 3D, so that really is not a big deal, which makes the 2DS XL look a lot more appealing. For $150, the 2DS XL is probably the end of the line for the 3DS. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing. Well sure, it's about half the price of the Switch, but more importantly, there are still games that are coming out for this. So stuff like Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon will be out a little bit later this year, and as far as I'm concerned, this is my favorite 3DS design yet. So, what do you guys think about the 2DS XL? Let me know in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next one.